You can take that to the bank. It's what you say when something's absolutely, positively certain. When it's as reliable as the institutions you trust with your hard-earned money. But when the banks fail, the impact can be cataclysmic. Last week, we saw some of the biggest bank collapses in American history occur within days at Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. These seismic developments sparked concerns among everyday Americans about the safety of their money, a shockwave that threatened to uproot other regional banks as well. Now, the government immediately stepped in with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or the FDIC, as you may know it, seizing the bank's assets and assuring its depositors that their money would not be affected. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen also appeared on Capitol Hill on Thursday, where she testified before a Senate committee assuring the public that their savings were safe. Take a listen.
I can reassure the members of the committee that our banking system is sound and that Americans can feel confident that their deposits will be there when they need them.
Now, President Biden also called on Congress to expand the power of the FDIC to hold bank executives accountable. But how are elected officials planning to secure your trust? Well, joining me now to discuss is Democratic Congressman Jeff Jackson of North Carolina. Welcome to you, sir. Before we get to this bank failure news, you are a former prosecutor, I'm told. So I'm wondering what you make of Donald Trump's baseless claim that he'll be arrested on Tuesday. And if you can maybe bring us inside some of the discussions happening amongst your colleagues on the Hill this weekend.
Well, Donald Trump may very well be arrested on Tuesday. I think if he is, the general sense is that this is going to relate back to Stormy Daniels, in which case he's facing a potential felony. There's a misdemeanor that he has to worry about of falsifying business records. This has to do with the hush money payment. It was Michael Cohen, his attorney at the time, who made the payment, but then it was Trump who reimbursed Michael Cohen. So that you've got a misdemeanor to worry about because he then falsified why that reimbursement occurred. The felony, if there is one, comes into play because there may be evidence of Trump's intent to defraud with respect to making that hush money payment, and particularly because he did it in phases. He structured the payment, which may indicate his intent to cover up what he was doing because he knew that he wasn't doing something he wanted people to find out about.
Okay, let's move to the banks. Quickly, sir, though, any comments about what other members of Congress you all are talking about as it relates to Trump this weekend?
That this feels like a long time coming, that everyone deserves their day in court, and that no one is above the law.
Okay, then. Let's talk about the banks. Now, the government rightly mobilized very quickly to limit the fallout from these bank failures. They essentially stopped the domino effect. But it is fair to say that we are still grappling with issues like the housing crisis in this country, student loan debt, right, environmental disasters, particularly like we saw in East Palestine or in Jackson, Mississippi. So what do you tell Americans asking, what about the rest of us?
I tell them you're right. I think this probably was an example of selective urgency on the part of Congress. That said, you can make a strong case for urgency in this case. Anytime we allow dozens of banks to fail, it leads to severe recessions, and severe recessions are things to be avoided. So this belongs on a list of things that we should respond to urgently. But to your point, so do a lot of other things.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, she sent a very blistering letter to the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell. And in that letter, she partially blamed him for the failures that we saw. She also called on him to recuse himself from the Fed's internal investigation. She wrote this: "For the Fed's inquiry to have credibility, you must immediately recuse yourself from this internal review and allow Vice Chair for Supervision Barr to have the independence necessary to do his job." Do you agree, Congressman, that Powell should recuse himself, and will you trust the findings of the Fed's internal review?
If the Fed wants to do an internal review, that's fine. But in addition, there really should be an independent review. And the reason that's particularly important in this case is because there's some early indication that the Federal Reserve itself made a big mistake. They had oversight authority that they chose not to use with respect to Silicon Valley Bank. So we're going to have a conversation about the regulations that were lifted 5 years ago on regional banks and whether those should be reinstated. But there was existing authority that was not used by the Federal Reserve. Will the Federal Reserve in their own investigation really criticize themselves? I don't know. If they want to do an investigation, that's fine. There should also be an independent one.
Congressman, if I can, I want to switch gears to get you to weigh in on TikTok. You actually came on my radar because of your amazing TikTok videos on social media. I was scrolling through my page about people that I do not follow, and you popped up, and I watched your whole video the other night on Silicon Valley Bank after you were briefed. TikTok is in the news because the Biden administration recently cited concerns over China's potential data collection through the app, and they gave an ultimatum to its owners, ByteDance, and the administration said sell the company or face a ban. Now, this ban, I think, will require an act of Congress. So do you support a ban if the demands of the administration are not met? And then how could this ban even be enforced?
I think the administration, after over a year of negotiation through the Treasury Department, came to the conclusion that they couldn't reach an agreement that would satisfy their concerns about two things in particular: data privacy for Americans and the algorithm itself and the potential for misinformation there. I think the ultimatum was necessary and appropriate. If I were China, I would divest from TikTok so that the 100 million Americans who use it on a regular basis can continue to use it. The best case scenario here is not banning TikTok. The best case scenario is a change in ownership.
And if they don't change ownership, are you going to stay on the platform?
I think at the point where TikTok is no longer available in the App Store, that would be a pretty clear signal that I wouldn't use it any longer.
All right. North Carolina Congressman Jeff Jackson, thank you very much for your time today, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.